you guys know how to make meringue now! But there's a couple more pieces of information that could still help you. The first is the kind of egg white that you use. There's basically two types that you can buy at the grocery store. One is fresh eggs. That's the normal eggs that you buy in the shell, in the carton, just eggs. You just buy eggs. And you can use those egg whites. The other you can get is in a carton. These are normally pasteurized egg whites, so they're safer for sick people or for older people. That's what they're normally used for. The carton egg whites can cause trouble with whipping and trying to make meringues because they've been heat treated. It's a whole thing. I don't know much about it, but in my experience, carton egg whites do not whip up as well as fresh eggs do. Different brands can do different things. I have had successful cartoned pasteurized egg whites make really beautiful meringues, but it's really kind of a hit or miss thing. I suggest you just try it out. If you want to use pasteurized because they're technically safer, go ahead and do that. Test it, see what happens. All you can do is learn. And the other tip is when you want to make meringue, make sure your eggs are room temperature. Now, you don't normally want to leave eggs sitting out on the counter. That's one way to do it, if you don't normally want to. My favorite way to bring eggs to room temperature is to get however many eggs you need. If you know that your recipe uses 12 egg whites, grab 12 eggs, put them in a bowl that you can fill with water, and then fill it with water that's relatively hot. You don't want it too hot because you don't want to risk cooking any of the egg inside the shell. But if you fill the container with hot water, completely cover your eggs, and leave it for like 5 minutes, your eggs are room temperature. Perfect. Room temperature eggs have more elasticity than refrigerator cold eggs do. So they're easier to whip up and they become more voluminous, whatever. They whip up more when they're at room temperature. But what happens when things go wrong? I'm done with my meringue. It's stiff peak. It seems fine, but for some reason it's grainy. If you're making basic meringue, and you end up with a grainy meringue at the end, that means you added your sugar a little bit too fast and it didn't get fully incorporated and dissolved into the egg whites. So once your egg whites are whipped up into the basic meringue, there's no way to fix this if it's grainy. You can still use it. It might not have perfect texture, but it's still usually usable. Next time, add your sugar a little bit slower. Do maybe a batch or two more as you add it in batches, and let it mix for a little bit longer in between batches so that you can make sure it's fully dissolved. If you're doing Swiss meringue, same thing. Once it's whipped up, you can't do anything about it. But the way to fix it beforehand is to make sure that your sugar is completely dissolved when it's on the stove with the egg whites. Just make sure you rub it between your fingers, make sure there's no grains. If there aren't any, you're fine. I've been mixing for like 15 minutes and my meringue will not whip up. It is still a liquid. This means there's probably fat in your egg white mixture. This can be either an egg yolk. It is normally an egg yolk, just a little one broke. You got a little bit of egg yolk in your egg whites when you were cracking the eggs. Nothing you could do about it. Unfortunately, you have to throw those egg whites out unless you can find the egg yolk and take it out. You need to throw it out. Once there's fat in your egg whites, it wraps around all those little protein molecules. Protein molecules can't bond. You're gonna have a liquid forever. You can't whip up egg whites if there is any fat in them at all. This is also one of the reasons I recommend metal bowls. You could also use glass. I prefer metal because plastic bowls tend to hold on to fat molecules. So if you try to whip up egg whites in a plastic bowl that you previously used for a salad or something that had an oil dressing, some of that oil could still be stuck on the plastic and you're not gonna be able to whip anything up. So, no fat in your egg whites. None. That's usually the only problem. If you can't whip up the egg whites, it's because there's some kind of fat in it. I'm making Italian meringue and I whipped it up, but it's too runny. It won't get stiffer. Unfortunately, there's no fixing the batch that you made because this means your sugar was not hot enough. If your thermometer read 248, then your thermometer is inaccurate and you need a different one. But your sugar definitely has to reach 248 to get the perfect Italian meringue. No less, even if it's just a few degrees, and no more, even if it's just a few degrees. Sugar is really, really picky like that. has to be a very exact temperature. Don't let that scare you away. You just need to make sure you have an accurate thermometer. Same thing if it's too runny when it's not hot enough. If your sugar gets too hot, it'll be too stiff, and the meringue, it's not useful. It'll be too hot. Cook the eggs. The sugar's too hard, it won't be elastic, it just won't work. Oh God, I've added the sugar to my Italian meringue, but now there's just a block of sugar in the bottom of the bowl and it's making a lot of noise. Okay, this has happened to me personally way too many times. There's no way to fix it, throw it out, start over. But the reason that it happened, as far as I have found in my own personal experience, is either adding the sugar too fast. So instead of the sugar getting dispersed in the egg whites while it mixes, it just pools on the bottom of the bowl and hardens and cools real quick, so you end up with just a sugar brick. Or I've also had the problem where my eggs were actually too cold, so when I added the hot sugar to my egg whites that were whipping, they were still too cold and it immediately chilled the sugar and hardened it as it mixed around. I made a mess out of my whip once. It was just covered in sugar strands and the base of it was just sugar brick hardened onto my whip. It was all over the bowl. The egg whites were a mess. It was a disaster. Ways to fix this: make sure you add your sugar slowly. You don't have to like drip it in, but thin stream down the side of the bowl. And make sure your egg whites are room temperature. That will help dramatically when making Italian meringue. Those are the main problems that I've personally had. I have ruined many a batch of meringue. Italian meringue seems to be my nemesis usually, but these issues do seem to be the most common. So hopefully I can provide some solutions for you. This has been a super fun series to make. I love meringue. It is used in so many different things. So I definitely want to thank you guys for watching. As always, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything, leave it all down in the comments below. I will read them all. And if you like this video and all of the others, if you'd like to see more, don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Bye!